So Kerryn, there are some concerns that it's not quite yet safe to go back to school in Canberra. How would you reassure parents and staff that it is indeed safe to do so?
Yeah, thanks Vanessa. In the ACT we're actually in a very good position at the moment. There is no evidence of community transmission and we have had very, very few cases over the last month and all of those have been acquired overseas. We also know from research in Australia that there is very limited transmission from child to child as well as child to adult within schools. Students who are aged 3 to 19 or people who are aged 3 to 19 also have very, very low rates of illness both in Australia as well as in countries overseas. And I guess in school places, the greatest risk of transmission is from adults to other adults. So the most important thing is for adults to maintain their social distancing of 1.5 metres from other adults. So Vanessa, what can people do to reduce the risk of transmission for both staff and students within schools?
Well, I think, Kerryn, we're really entering a new normal here with staff and students returning to school and other people returning to workplaces. The most important thing to do is stay away from school if you're a staff member or a student and you are sick. That's the absolute first point. The second point is that we've got to continue to maintain the really good hand hygiene and cough hygiene practices that we've got so good at in the last couple of months. And finally, for the adults, they need to maintain their social distancing with other adults in the school grounds. So we don't want to see parents congregating outside the classroom, staff when they're in the staff tea room, they need to keep their distance, 1.5 metres from one another.
So how can parents help?
Well, during the return and the transition back to face-to-face school learning, parents play a really big role in this. The first thing is, if you're sick, don't come onto the school grounds. That's the very first thing. If your child is sick, don't bring them to school. We do understand the pressures on parents, especially working parents to get to work, but we're living in this new normal now where we just can't have anyone on the school grounds that have any symptoms of COVID-19. So that's the first thing. The second thing is when you're dropping your child off, try and keep your physical distance from other adults in the vicinity. Now that might be at the school gate. For the younger kids, it might be outside the school room. You need to maintain your distance, 1.5 metres from other adults, and spend as little time as possible on the school grounds. So leave as quickly as you can.
So is it okay for me to still go onto school grounds?
Yeah, it is okay for you to go into school grounds. We do recognise that particularly for younger kids, kids in kindergarten and preschool, that it's very hard to drop them at the gate and not get out of the car like you might do for an older child. But where you might have been used to catching up with other mums or dads outside the classroom and having a chat, which is entirely normal, in this circumstance we ask you not to do that. So maintain your distance from the class teacher, from other parents, don't chat, leave quickly.
And I guess the other most important thing to do is to work with your school on understanding the rules that they've put around to protect everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And the schools are all working on their guidance to parents, to teachers, to adhere to all of these physical distancing and hygiene measures that we've been reiterating throughout the epidemic. So please adhere to those guidances and do your bit to keep the school safe.